So traditionally, client-side design and developers doesn't really go too well together. I think that most devs are in it just to do the coding, just to knock out the features and get it working properly. And it is, especially a long time ago, it was very difficult to get things looking nice in a consistent way, in an easy way. You really had to put the time in to get things looking polished. And sort of where we're at now is a position where we can finally start to just use one sort of set of markup, one pattern of classes, one sort of way of designing and achieving something that looks nice accidentally. You don't have to really put effort in. It just, if you do things the right way, it'll look nice. And so what does this? What is Bootstrap? It's a CSS and a JavaScript framework. It's designed just to make your websites look nice straight off the bat. What you want to be doing is writing less CSS and just using classes instead, using them in a consistent way. Your whole site is going to come together quite nicely. So previously, the internet was invented. 1995 or thereabouts, we all used tables. Tables were how we put things in the right spot. Once that fad died down, CSS2 came along, and everyone started using divs and making a real mess of things at the same time. But at least we had the ability to have a greater control over the way things worked. Between 2001 and 2006, all developers kind of went a bit mad. They went a bit crazy. Does anyone have any idea why? No, not quite. This is the lifespan of IE6. And so, yeah, cross-browser design, all sorts of pain came from needing to cater to all browsers. In 2005, jQuery was released. And what this gave developers was this whole suite of tools to suddenly make much richer user interfaces. People were sliding things, people were making things fade in and out. Lots of customized design based on user agents. Like, the designs really started to step up. By the time 2007 comes around, we've been using CSS for quite a long time, and it's still quite messy. jQuery UI is the sort of first step in the right direction towards getting some sort of consistency in design. How many people have used jQuery UI, by the way, in the past? Excellent, it's about 50% of the room. It was actually quite good. It gave us a few components, and it really helped us sort of, in a team, achieve the same output rather than Dev 1 having something look like this, Dev 2 something looking completely different. In 2011, Bootstrap 1 was released, and now by this point we've got consistency. We are using classes to define our layouts. It's still early days in terms of that framework in 2011, but the pain of writing CSS consistently across all devs, across all projects, across all, everything, we're finally closer to it now. But who am I to tell you that? Well, I'm Ben. I work for SSW up in Brisbane. I'm a senior software architect up there. Catch me on Twitter if you want to. I'm a web guy. I love HTML. I love CSS. That makes me happy now that I've got Bootstrap. I also am very into MVC and Azure. I love the ability now to file a new project, whip something up, pump it to Azure, and you can be done in, hours rather than days. Another thing about me that you may or may not know is I love beer. And you can also find me on Untapped. I have 305 distinct beers, which I'm quite proud of. And one thing that you should be able to take away from this is this particular mobile application looks and feels exactly like a native app on, I think it's iOS is probably its closest, or Android maybe. But you can achieve this sort of layout these days in HTML5 pretty easily and consistently. And that, in fact, is HTML5 across all devices. I believe they're using PhoneGap or something similar. I've also released a video on Twitter Bootstrap, thanks to SSW TV, that was quite popular actually. 5,000 views, I'm quite happy about that. If you want to take a look and see at some of the introductory stuff, that is a good video to watch. I roll through sort of start to beginning. And 38 likes, no dislikes, so no disliking it. I want to keep my record. No, what? So what am I going to be talking about today? We've just had a quick run through the history and seen sort of how CSS and design has kind of progressed to this point. And I want to tip us over the line and get us into somewhere really nice. We've had a quick look at Bootstrap, but I'll roll through what that is. How to get it into your projects. If there's one thing you take away from today, it's the grid system. It's the ability to lay out content in a consistent way. Doesn't matter about theming, doesn't matter about anything else. Just keeping the layout consistent is the #1 takeaway of today. You'll note with Bootstrap, there is a class for everything. Classes will become your go-to thing rather than putting in little styles, which I hope you don't do inline, or generating your own CSS. This will really do a lot of that base tedious work for you. And finally, scaffolding, which I'm not sure how many of you have seen this, but as of Visual Studio 2013, if you have a view model, you can go File, New View, select Create or Edit or Details, and it will spin up a page, a view for you, with all the fields from your view model, and it's automatically got Bootstrap classes and stuff littered through it. So you're already, 50 to 75% of the way there. So, Bootstrap, out of the box, what do you get? If you go to Visual Studio 2013 and you go File, New Project, you've already got Bootstrap. It's already there. It's added, sorry for the flickering by the way. It's added via NuGet. So whenever you create a project these days, most of the files and content that you get by creating that project are downloaded through NuGet. They don't download it initially. All the packages are locally on your machine, but they're added in NuGet. So you can update and upgrade just by going to NuGet Update Packages. It's already in your bundle config. So how many of you are using the bundling sort of system that comes with MVC these days? A couple, probably 5 or so. It's a really good tool. It's really powerful. You can put all your references in there, your CSS references and your JavaScript references, and it will automatically bundle them up into a single HTTP request, and it will minify it for you, and it's quite nice. And Bootstrap is already included via that bundling system when you go File, New Project. And you can just start using it straight away, button primary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you do this. When it spins up. All right. When was the last time anyone did File, New Project these days? Yell out. Heaps, all the time? It's good stuff. I always try to do it every now and then because things change and I don't notice. All right, we'll call this one to alternative to what? To doing File, New Project. No, I meant how many new projects have you created recently? Not necessarily File Project, yes. I'll call this one, is that going nuts, is it? It's all right. Do you just want to hit OK so it does it in the background? And again. How many people are on Visual Studio 2013 at the moment, by the way? Oh, yep, good 50%. Yeah, make sure if you do try out 2014 to do it in a separate VM because you will clobber your 2013 or lower if you try it. A few people have had that problem. All right, let's see how we go. So the first sort of hint to seeing what goes on now is this new page. If you look sort of over here, you'll see theming using Bootstrap. That happens to every new project. And you can click that and you can go off and have a look at what its documentation says. But we're not going to do anything. We're going to go File, Save, Build, Run. So I haven't touched it. I haven't done anything, I swear. And once this comes up, you will see the pretty familiar ASP.NET default template. It uses Bootstrap these days. And so what you get essentially is very nice content. And if we have a look at our site.css, there's barely anything in it. There's nothing in it. There's a couple of things you don't need. In fact, you don't need any of it. You could delete this and you'll be fine. In fact, I'm going to delete it. I don't want it. Just a quick thing to notice. See this here? Set width on form input elements. You're going to need to delete that. It constricts all your form elements, and Bootstrap doesn't like that. It wants to flow to the size of its column, but we'll get to that. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to delete all of site.css. And you'll notice, if we still save and have a look at the website, it'll be a little bit clunkier because I've removed some padding. But for the most part, everything's exactly as it was when you can see it. Let's say I don't have the convenience of starting a new project to include Bootstrap. What I want to do is include it in an existing project. It's reasonably simple to do. You're going to go and File, Open Project, go to your existing one. Install package Bootstrap. So use NuGet, go and grab Bootstrap, throw these bits of code into your bundle config if you're using that way. Otherwise, you can just reference it normally. It doesn't matter. And now you can button primary away as well. And what I mean by that is if we just go to our index page, just in the top blurb, I'm going to put another button. So if I go, sorry? Oh, you should be seeing this. Very sorry. All right, and now we can flick over to the code. We can make it way bigger. Input. No, we won't do input. Let's do traditional button. Class. All right, so when I use a button normally, I'll just go, this is my button. We'll take a look at how that looks. My button, there you go. It's in a bit of an awkward spot, but there it is. That's your traditional button. To make it Bootstrap, we use classes. We're going to go BTN, that's your base button class, and we're going to put button default. And that's the theming that we apply on top of the base class. I'll jump back in and you'll see it now looks like a Bootstrap button. And so you can do that. File new project, straight away. Get into it. Get stuck into it. So, the most important part, the grid system. This is the most exciting part of Bootstrap, if that's your kind of thing. It's made up of three key components: the container, rows, and columns. The container being the all-encompassing part of your content. This is what sets the width of your content for the whole site up and down. Rows separate your content into logical sort of top to bottom segments. And each row has one or more columns. The mathematicians amongst you might notice that you get 12 no matter where you are. You've got 12 at the top, 444 is 12, and we've got a little bit of a 12 down the bottom there as well. Cull MD4, that's how you do it. That's how you reference a column. So yeah, just to reiterate that. Classes to define it, you've got your container, row, and Cull MD12, or 1, or 2, or 4, or 5. You can use anything that makes up 12 segments. And what I mean by that is, here's a couple of the key sort of layouts I like to use. So in this one, we've got 8 and 4, we've got 4, 4, 4, and we've got 6 and 6. And a good way to describe this and to show you what that means is to just take a look at our website. So, our website, SSW. Can you see whereabouts we'd be using these columns? Essentially, that big banner at the top there is a 12, full width, 12 segments. These next 4 boxes down the bottom here, that's 4 sets of 3 segment columns. So we go 3, 3, 3, 3. As we move down, can anyone guess what these black ones are? Exactly the same. This next one is a bit trickier. You've got the Australia's leading .NET consultants on the left and upcoming events on the right. Can anyone guess what those 2 ones are? 8 and 4 is it. Thank you. The interesting thing about these columns is you have as much depth as you want to get into. So each column has 12 segments of its own, and you can continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So if you have a look there, we've got the Microsoft partner and we love Microsoft. That's actually a 6 and a 6 within an 8. As long as you keep using rows, you can just keep going down and down and down. And to give you a quick example of that, I'm going to edit this index. So at the moment we've got 3 columns of 4. I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to put 2 columns of 6. Sorry about the flickering. When we come back here, 2 columns of 6, and you'll notice too that the content is just going to keep wrapping within itself. So that first content where I've just added all that in, it's all just going to constrain to that. But what I really want to do is in this web hosting area, I actually want to put another column in there as well. So what we'll do is inside the column, we're going to add another div class of row. We're going to add another column in here. Cull MD6. I'm just going to split it in half. I'm going to put that existing content we had in that, and then I'm going to create another column. And I'm going to put in Ben rules. Yes, yes he does. Okay, so what this is going to look like is we keep our overarching columns, and then within that column we can split it up, and you can do it again and again and again and again. So when we were working on the SSW website, we managed to get in all our columns and everything, and it looks good. But I got told off because when you start to shrink it, nothing happens. If I were to visit this on a phone, nothing's happening. It's going to look something like that, and that's not a very good experience. If only there were a way to just shrink the content, move everything around. Let's see what we can do about that. With Bootstrap, by default, what you get is responsiveness straight out of the box. If I take this website and I make it, I'll go big to small for you. I'll try and beat the flickering. So here we are. That's nice, desktop looking sort of thing. If we shrink this down, sorry, I'll just get that one for you again. If we shrink it down, and we shrink it down, and we get to phone resolution, you notice all the content has shrunk, it's wrapped around itself, and it's going to look nice.
So it's giving up the 12 columns at that point, just saying, oh, 40 will I'll make it 1 column.
That's exactly right. So by default, it'll take a look at your Cull MD4s, and it'll go, I know better. When it's this small, I'm going to make it a 12, and I'm going to wrap it underneath, and I'm going to just lay it out how I think you want it to happen. And that is responsiveness for free out of the box. As long as you code consistently for your desktop sort of view, when it gets shrunk down, it'll all just look nice by default. And that, I think, is a really big win. So sort of what have I done here? Okay. We actually implemented it just this morning. So what we've got here is the responsive version of that same thing. Someone who has not used Bootstrap at all before calls themselves a non-CSS person. So thank you, David Barella, for implementing this for me. what we get now is that exact same website. I'll just scroll up and down. You can see same content.
We've still got a lot of white space to the left and to the right that we're not using.
That's right. So,
Are you guys happy with that?
what was that, sorry, Adam? Oh, sorry. The comment was there's a lot of white space to either side of the content. Now, this site in particular was designed that way, so it wanted to keep the content sort of narrow and sort of in the middle. Sorry?
Why?
It looks like it's 750 pixels. Designers like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yes, sorry, TJ?
On Bootstrap, you can actually use dash fluid. You can add it to container rows and all that, and actually they will.
Yes. Yes. So you don't have to use the container. The container is what's going to. Sorry, the question was you don't have to. You can add dash fluid to your container, etc., and it will go full width. And you don't have to use the container. So if you can just use the columns and rows, that should work as well. So you can also set the width of the container if you wanted a particular fixed width that everything will conform to. So the idea here, and hopefully this is fixed the flickering, is now our content begins to squish, begins to move around, and by default, yes?
How much control do you have over what it does responsively?
So the question was, how much control do you have over what it does responsively? That's an excellent question. At the moment, you've got no control. We've added our MD4s, and Bootstrap has clobbered it and said, no, when you get down here, this is what you're going to see. Does anyone have any questions about that, by the way, at the moment? Nope? That's excellent. Because you've touched on a really, really good point. This grid system, you can target screen sizes. I lied. You can change it. You can do whatever you want. You've got 4 device sizes, 4 screen sizes that you can target, and you can offer different combinations of columns. You can hide and show content. You can actually change the whole website based on what the user is, viewing it through. It starts at large desktop, big PCs. Small desktop is sort of landscape tablets to small PCs. Small, which is tablets and landscape phones sometimes, and extra small, which is phone view. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that because it is excellent. So the problem here was the content went from 4 columns down to just 1 column, whereas I actually just want it to keep that 2 columns when it gets this small. So what I'm going to do is show you how to fix that using this page. So what have we got there? We've got 2 columns at the top, and then the second column. Oh, sorry. So we have 2 columns at the top, and what I want it to do is when it gets smaller, I don't want it to go to 12s, I want it to keep 2 columns all the way down. So the way we do this is we're using MD. Now you notice just on the slide before, MD, medium desktop, small desktop. It stands for medium. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, actually, all the way down to extra small, and I'm not sure if you guys can see that, all the way down to extra small, I want it to keep that 6 segments. So extra small, save that, and let's refresh this page. So immediately you can see at this size, it's kept our 2 columns. Now just so you've got a bit of context, what we're looking at here is the large view. As I shrink, wait for it to click. See that click there to there? That's clicking into medium mode. And then when it clicks again, which is there, we're now in small mode. And when we get really tiny, which is here, we're in extra small mode. And you'll notice now my 2 columns have collapsed and they've stayed there, the 2 columns all the way down. So you do have very good control over how you want things to respond and how you want things to move around. And keep in mind, still haven't written any CSS. This is all just classes. You just decorate everything. So, a class for everything, as I said. A couple of default ones, the button, or a couple of interesting ones here are the button Form control, labels, and tables. These are my favorite. These all just work so well. Now, I've already showed you a button working. What I'm going to do is go ahead and show you a form element as well. So just below this, let's whack in a text box. So over in that far column, that's what a text box looks like by default. Chrome renders a text box like that. It'll look different across all the browsers. If we want to bootstrap it up, we go class, form control. And what that does is it automatically sets the width to 100. So one really important point here is all of your form elements are going to expand as big as they can get. So what you need to do is put everything into columns. If you put all your content into columns, you won't run into trouble. Everything will look nice, things will expand, and you get some nice sort of glowing sort of bits as well, which you can't see. Trust me, that's glowing. It's it looks really good. You should see this. So form controls, we can also do labels. These are handy little things. If I said web hosting was really cheap, I'm going to go to web hosting, and in here, or rather outside of there, span class label. I'm going to say label success, and I'm going to say really cheap. And what that does, sorry to flick around on you, is add in a nice little label. This is just one of the components you get, and it looks really good. And finally, the table. This is probably one of the better things. Is if in this getting started, let's just in here, let's put a table in. Now, I was only shown this today, and I'm not sure how many of you guys have tried this. Let me show you some magic. I want to create a table. I want a T head inside that table. I want a TR, and then I want a TH. Wait, tab. Boom, up it comes. And then in that TH, I want name and Control D. I want age. And then just below here, I want a T body with a TR and a TD, tab. And then the screen disappears. There we go. I hit tab too violently. And in here, I'm going to put Ben. And in here, I'm going to put 99. And if I save that, let's take a look at what the table looks like by default. I mean, okay, there's a couple of values. It's a bit squished. It's up there. It's not awful, but it's certainly not good. To make a table look really nice, we add the class table. That was hard. Then we add table. We've got a few options here, and I'll go through these, but table striped is one of my favorites. And let's just leave it there. Let's just see what that looks like. Oh, good. Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Eric said that was awesome. He was the one that showed me. Thank you, Eric. And look at that. We have a really nice looking table. We can cram all the data we want into that. And I have never worried about styling tables ever again. I use that default one everywhere, and it is excellent. So the key to that is there's classes for everything. Anything you can think of that you go, oh, hang on, this doesn't look quite right, you can find the class and you can make it look good. Now you may have noticed in my slide, I've got label danger. Not good. That's red. And you may notice that in my page, I put label success. Let me find that for you. Label success. So remember that label is the base class. Label success. This is one of those sorts of contextual sort of colors. So when I come into here, there are contextual accents. You can use button primary, and you'll get that nice sort of call to action style button. You can use button default, and you'll get the nice sort of clean button. Now, one really important thing to notice with these is primary will use your main accent color, which is usually this blue. Use primary for your main call to action. If you have a form and you want to put, you will need to put, or you would want to put save as a button primary because that's your main call to action. And if you have any other sort of buttons that do things along the way, like upload file is usually a button, you want to use default for those. So just sort of general good practice there is to make the less distracting ones throughout the form and always use primary for your main call to actions.
Does that have any influence over tab order? Which is normally you'd say your default button is where the tab's going to go?
It does not. So I'm pretty sure tab order always consistently goes just first to last in terms of markup.
You can't get it to jump the button.
Sorry? Oh, sorry, let me repeat that question. The question was, does these sort of contextual accents or classes affect the tab order of a website? Yeah.
Yeah, in particular, the default typically people see as the default button that's going to be hit if you hit enter, or escape goes to the
Right.
other one.
So
This
not
has nothing
currently.
to do with
No. So these are just mainly style sorts of things, and they've tried to keep it that way. But no, you'll still need to handle that sort of stuff yourself. I think just visually it does that, though. They'll know that is the key button to press. And there's not just default, and there's not just primary. There's also success, info, warning, danger, and link. Now, you'll probably only use the rest of these in a very few spots throughout your site. But some of the ones I really like to use danger for whenever you're doing something that's going to hurt. So deleting something permanently, giving admin permission to someone, something really bad. And I really like to use link, which just makes it look like a normal A-link, but it keeps it in the shape and padding of a button. And I like to use that for cancel. So if I ever have my primary call to action and I also want to cancel, I like to have the primary on the left and my little cancel as a link on the right. And I think that is really good practice for sort of UI design. The other thing you might notice about these is you can apply them to a few sort of elements. At the moment, I've shown you buttons here. You've got default primary, and you use btn dash whatever that name is to make that happen. But you can also change the color of just any old container by using bg dash one of those. And you can also change text color by doing the same thing. So text dash one of those, and it'll change the color. And so that's really good for sort of odd validation snippets where they've done something right or wrong. You can go text dash success or danger. There's a few situations in which you can do that. And you're not assigning colors, you're assigning context. So you've done well, you've done something wrong, warning, it makes it so that if the designer said, warning shouldn't be yellow, it should be some sort of, I don't know, purple, they can do that in one spot and it would affect the whole site. Where you wanted to say warning, the designer can put in the correct color. Now, I mentioned before I was into beer. There are 4 key ingredients in beer. You've got hops, you've got malts, you've got yeasts. Can anyone think of the 4th? That's it, water. Good, I'm glad. I'll drink your beer. Thank you. Anyway, the point of this is I like to brew beer, I like to design beers, and whenever I do, I usually like to start with a solid foundation. I like a good base beer, and then I want to reuse that and just tweak it a little bit to make it taste, extra special. And in a similar vein, when I'm building forms, when I'm designing sites, when I'm doing the tedious grunt work, I like to have the bulk of it done for me, and then I want to come in there and just make it look good. I want to make it extra special. I want to make it work properly. And in Visual Studio 2013, what they've done is they've let you create a view model, so have properties on a class, and then when you go to add new view, you can select from things like create, edit, details, etc., and it will spin up that view for you. It'll put all the correct all the correct inputs in, and it'll actually format it with all the Bootstrap classes there for you already. You don't need to do anything. You can literally just go File, New View, and you know what? Let's go and do that right now. So, first things first, I'm going to add a new model. I'm going to call this one beer. What will a beer have? A beer will have, let's give it a name. Shouldn't have had so many before I started. Can you see that? Sorry, that's very small. There we go. I'm going to give it bool has good head. And I'm going to give it a string to describe the color in the right way of saying color. So with these properties, I can then go views. I'll go to home. I'll go right click. Sorry if that's a bit small for you guys. I'll go up to add view. So this is typically what you do normally. The view name I'm going to call beer. Now this next line, template, what you can do is select from create, delete, details, edit, empty, empty, and list. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use create. Next thing it asks for, model class. Now I've just made that model beer, so I'm going to put that in. You can also add in data context class if you're using Entity Framework. I'm not going to do that today. You've got something here saying reference script libraries. That's going to be important for us in a minute, so I'll show you that. And the default user layout page. So when I add that, in the background it's going off and it's looking at that model, and it's gone in and it's put all the correct Bootstrap classes I need. It's put in all the correct HTML.editor4s and such things, and let me just make that big again as well. So you can see things like control label, that's a Bootstrap one, Cull MD2, that makes the labels only 2 widths wide, Cull MD10 for the form elements themselves, and form control. So I've done nothing. I'm going to save. Before I do that, I'm just going to quickly go into the home controller and set up a route. Beer. Build. Never forget to build. And then we'll come in here and we'll go to that one. All right. What's the first thing you notice? Yes. So remember earlier when I said delete that CSS because you're never going to need it. We need it here. But I'll show you a trick. The Visual Studio guys, or whoever put that particular piece of CSS in there, were cheating. They said, no, it's okay. No one's ever going to want a form with, bigger than 285 or what it was. But what we can do is use the power of Bootstrap to just say, you know what, let's use a class and let's pick how big we want it. Can anyone guess how we're going to do that? I can tell you. It's okay. You don't need to. We'll jump into the beer view. So, Cull MD10. I skipped over it briefly before, but this one here, that determines the size of your form element. When I say you need 12 segments, that's also cheating. You can have as many segments that is less than 12 as you want, just knowing that nothing's going to appear to the right of it. So where we've got Cull MD2 just up here, that's the label width, and where we've got Cull MD10, I'm just going to change that to 4. I'm going to go back, I'm going to refresh. And you'll notice that our particular element is now stuck at 4. And the great thing about this is you can target the screen sizes as well. So 4 might be pretty good for, the big views. But if I shrink it, MD is suddenly gone really big. It's gone to 12. So I should probably add a class for that as well. And as I get smaller, phone view, the label's automatically wrapped up to the top. Form elements come across the bottom, and it's full width. And so that looks really good on your smaller devices. But this one, what's that? That's MD. That's horrible. Let's make that smaller as well. So the beauty about this, or maybe it's SM, very sorry. Cull MD4, you can also put multiple ones of these to target the different screen sizes. So I'm also going to put Cull SM6 because I think I want, and that sort of a view, about half the screen. So if we save and put that in, oh, it's made it backwards. That's fun. You know what? Let's keep it at 12. I liked it that way anyway. But the idea is you can target the different screen sizes. You can make those columns different widths. If I wanted to fix that up, you'd put it on the label as well.
When you put two
Yeah, microphone.
when you put two classes,
Sorry.
When you put multiple classes in there, how does it know which one to choose?
That's a very good point. So if anyone couldn't hear that, it's when you put multiple classes on those elements, how does the browser or Bootstrap know which one to choose? And the point is, it's based on that screen size of what the user is using. So if you put in Cull MD4, anything with MD and above, it's going to use 4. If you put Cull SM6, it's going to go, okay, as of the small view, I'm going to use 6 until I reach the next one I'm told. So because I put in small and medium, small's only going to have 6, medium will have 4, and large will have 4 because it works its way up that way. One of the other cool things about scaffolding is the ability to hook in unobtrusive validation just out of the box. We don't have to do anything, and it's going to validate itself properly. And I'll give you a quick demo on that as well. So if we come into our beer view model, our beer model, and we say this one is required, a beer must have a name. We'll build that, and we'll go back to our form. And if we hit create, oh no, if we refresh, then hit create. We get this name field is required. It's in red, so it's already kind of hooking into the Bootstrap theme. And that's for free. We don't have to do anything. We've got really nice validation that's both server-side and client-side. It runs on the client side here. If I did just post it, it would reject my request, and on the server side as well, so that's really good. But, I mean, we've only got that little bit of red text down there. I think we can do better. Now, Bootstrap has some validation classes, and I'm going to post this up later as well. But if we go to one of my, here it is. If I grab some magic script, and I will make this available as well, and I go to the layout, and I paste in that. What this has done is it's hooking into jQuery validator, which is what by default Microsoft's unobtrusive validation works with. It looks for form groups, and it adds the class hasError, and it removes it based on whether or not it is valid. So hasError is another one of those Bootstrap classes that if you put on a form group, which is the container for an entire form element, actually, I'll just make sure I've saved everything there, and then I'll go back and show you the view. So if we refresh now and we try that same stunt again, it's gone and changed the label. It's given us a nice, oh, you can see the red glow. So that's what it looked like before, but in blue. We've got a nice red glow around our text box, and we've got a red validation field. And so that will work, all over the shop, and it looks really good. And I had to put in that little script, but apart from that, everything is working really nicely. Another thing I run into a lot with web application development is the need for some sort of icon or image to represent what I want to do. Now, typically, you've had to search for images, which can be painful. You really want to be using vectors as well because they can scale nicely on the different device sizes and zooming in and stuff like that. They don't pixelate. These days, we're going for flat sort of icons, and we don't want the colorful 3D ones. Does anyone have any idea of what libraries they usually go to? Does anyone have any icon libraries or anything like? Sorry, what was that? Glyph icons. Yes, that's one of them. Dan at the back. FunAwesome. It's funny you should mention that, because I think about FunAwesome and I go, well, it's not an image, is it? They use vectors. They're nice and flat. And then they're not 3D. That sounds like a pretty good idea. FunAwesome. If no one's seen this before, it's an icon library, but it's a font instead. You reference it with just a CSS snippet, any way you would reference another CSS file. You could get some really, really neat looking icons like this. They're flat, they're easy to use, and because they're a font, you can treat them like a font, just like normal text. So you use font size to make them bigger or smaller. You can use color to change their color. You can use text shadow to give them really nice shadows and stuff like that. And one really cool trick that
Sorry, I must be stupid or something. I don't understand. How are you using graphics as a font?
exactly. So underline it is. Oh, okay. So the question was, I'm sorry, I don't understand, but how are you using how are you using graphics as a font? Technically, all fonts are just vector shapes, and this is no different. These are just vector shapes that have been embedded as a font. And so when you type the letter capital A, instead it puts in something like this. It's drawing that shape for you. So you can make it as big or small as you want and change the color. And one really cool sort of application for this, and this is what I love to do, is let's take a look at this application name. That's a pretty boring company name. Let's jump in to our layout. And let's change application name. I'm going to go and ditch that link. And instead, I'm going to put in a company. Let's go with Crazy Planes. Now this is a much better name. Crazy Planes. Okay, that's good. What I'll just do is remember what class they used. Navbar brand, there you go. So I can't remember these off the top of my head all the time. You will need to go look these things up. So class, navbar brand. You'll notice that when I use, you can't see. You'll notice when I put Crazy Planes, it's just sort of jammed that text up the top there. So if we add Crazy Planes, and we give this a class of navbar brand, that's going to fix it back up for us. So that's how you can add. And this is a pretty default and cheap and easy way of adding your application name and stuff to the top. But what I really like is FunAwesome as logos. So I can put in an I tag, which is how you reference one of these particular icons. And I'm going to put in the class FA for FunAwesome. That's the base class. And I'm going to put in FA send, which I know looks a bit like nothing. And do you want to know why it looks like nothing? Because with FunAwesome, it's a separate website. We've got to reference this thing. So how do you go and get it? How do you include this in your project? What you need to do is go to FunAwesome.io. And here you can download it if you want to reference it locally. You can go see all the icons if you wanted to as well. If we just click up here, you can go through and see there's just tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of these vector icons, all really, really cool. The other cheating way of adding this is to use a CDN. If you go to Bootstrap CDN, you can just grab this link and you can add it as a reference to the top of your project. What do I need? I need rel style sheet. Okay, so now that we've added it, let's take a look and see how we did. Right, Crazy Planes, there's our logo. We can add colors. Adam, question?
How does the FunAwesome guy make money?
So the question was, how does the FunAwesome guy make money? I don't think they do.
So Alex made a comment saying that Kickstarter. Yeah, so the FunAwesome guy put a commercial version on Kickstarter.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
That would be check out the Kickstarter. Let's have a look. So the comment just here was, Eric on the chat feed said, there's a Kickstarter for actually raising money, which I have not seen, and you should all go check out. If you love FunAwesome, you're going to love Black Tie. I probably already do. That's great. I always thought this was just a nice open source set of icons.
If that video is only 1 minute play.
Okay, that sounds good.
Hi internets, I'm Dave Gandy. 2 years ago, to solve the problem that I was having with icons in the web, I created FunAwesome. My goal with FunAwesome was to make a great set of icons that were easier to use and more powerful. By adding just a single line of code to your website, FunAwesome gives you a friendly, cohesive set of scalable vector icons that you can easily style and never need Photoshop. Size, color, animation, and anything else you can do with CSS, you can do with FunAwesome. Other folks have found FunAwesome useful. It's now on at least 700,000 websites and is still growing. So thank you all for making it such a huge success and for all you've invested in the project. I've spent hundreds of hours working on FunAwesome, but it isn't perfect yet. I would love to have the time to take it back down to the studs and rebuild it from scratch, make it better. That's why I'm kickstarting FunAwesome Black Tie. Black Tie will be an all-new commercial icon font designed completely from scratch, building on all of the great things from the original FunAwesome. There will be at least 150 icons available in 4 different styles: solid, bold, medium, and a thin outline variety that fits right in on the modern web. In contrast to FunAwesome's informal style, Black Tie will be clean, minimalist, and more refined. Rounded corners will be removed and icons simplified down to their barest form. This means faster load times than the original FunAwesome. And thanks to our friends at Nerdy Data, we know exactly which of the original FunAwesome icons people are using most on their sites. That means we can pack Black Tie with the icons people need most, while also optimizing file size. Bottom line, Black Tie will have better technology, usability, and design. In order to put the time I'd like into Black Tie, I need your help to make it happen. This will allow hiring another developer to build new features, and give me the time to focus on making every single icon sub-pixel perfect. As a FunAwesome Black Tie backer, you have some great rewards to choose from. You can pick a discounted license for one Black Tie style, or get all 4 for a great price. We've got limited edition t-shirts, and you can also choose an icon that I'll custom design for the set. You can even get your company's logo added to Black Tie. We've also got some great group rewards, including lots of additional icons and a subsetting tool that will allow you to download your own custom set of icons. If you like FunAwesome, you're going to love Black Tie. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, great. Excellent. That's cool. I might check that out, actually. I really like these guys. So I saw something really cool in there. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. But crazy planes, you know, let's just step up the crazy with another little class. Crazy planes.
Just because you can.
I've flown with that airline.
Yes, and I will. I'll leave it on this for the rest of the presentation. So there is so much you can do. These icons are so flexible. There's so many. They're clean, they're easy, and the best part is being able to treat them like a font, change their color, make them spin. That's just cool. So check them out. That's FunAwesome.io. So one thing you may or may not have seen over the internet is the prevalence of websites that look very, very similar without the spinning to the home page. Very sorry. Let's just jump back home. Similar to this, where they've got that same navigation bar across the top. They've got that same sort of clean and well-organized thing with a really minimalist sort of footer. These websites with maybe a different colored header. Sometimes the content's a bit different and laid out a bit differently, but there are a lot of these Bootstrap websites around the place. And it can get a bit difficult to move past that. At SSW, we don't use blue, so you know what do we do? we just don't use primary, or you know, it's a bit confusing. We like to use links that are dotted underline. We don't want just a standard underline. So we need a way of, you know, sort of stepping past the generic Bootstrap theme. We don't want to, again, write CSS everywhere. And what you can do to fix that is visit something like wrapbootstrap.com. This particular website has just an absolute heap of different really good, well-designed themes. And that's the key word, themes. You can create your own theme that sits on top of Bootstrap, and it lets you target all the classes, because developers are writing their code with consistent classes. If you want to change the style of your primary button, and at SSW we like red, we're going to put red there into button primary, and then all of a sudden, all across the website, wherever they wanted that main call to action, you've got a red button. You can, and this is what I personally like to do, is just jump into some of these. Whenever I need to make a really quick, you know, website that I want to spin up an MVC and I want to put it onto Azure and just be done with it, just go and pick one of these. You know, got a lot of the marketing stuff, but you can get really nice headers. You can get really nice sort of call to action bars just by visiting these templates. Most of them are reasonably cheap as well. And if you're really clever, you can just go into their live previews and maybe just take a sneak peek under the covers and pull out some of that source code. But I will just visit that really quickly as well, because just to give you an idea.
Have you compared this with Bootswatch?
So the question was, have I compared this with Bootswatch? I believe that Bootswatch does more of a default theming. Let me bring it up for comparison. Look at that, free themes for Bootstrap. Thank you very much. Bootswatch as well. So here you can see, actually this is what I mean. This is what I mean. Now you can start to get different bases, different sort of base themes. This is really good. Oh, that looks good, simplex. And so this is the point. Because everything is coded consistently, theming and designing becomes a lot easier. And you know, it's all just going to work really nicely. So bootswatch.com for some really nice base themes, and wrap Bootstrap for things with a bit more, like they come with a bit more components. There obviously a lot of design has gone into these. And you can really get some really nice looking websites.
Expensive though, aren't they?
Oh, look, it's about the price of a coffee, $18. But the key point to this as well is that you can generate your own components, and you can start to build up your own sort of arsenal of sort of things. So with these admin screens as well, you've got, you know, little counters, little diagrams, little bits and pieces that you can start to consistently use as well.
It's cheap.
And it's cheap. Now, I'm not sure how many of you noticed, but at the beginning of my presentation, I used the term make your websites or web apps accidentally excellent. So what I would like to see before I put a T on the end of this presentation are the following. There's just a couple of extra bits. One of them, when it comes up, is the callouts from the documentation. There is a lot of documentation about Bootstrap, which I'll show you. And it's designed really nicely, and there's a callout button thing. So there's a callout pop-up here. I think that's really good. They've added something to their own documentation, but not added it to the framework. I'd really like to see that in the framework so that you can use it, just call out. It's just this thing. It's just a nicely styled little alert sort of box. I just want to see that in there personally. There are alert bars. They're a little heavier and more in your face and want you to close them, whereas this is just a nice sort of informational box. Eric in the chat mentions multi-level menus. So with Bootstrap, you can add, and it's going to flicker for a second. There we go. In Bootstrap, you can add menus. So if you go to that top navigation drop-down, I'll show you this in a sec, you can go drop-down, and it'll give you nice drop-down menus, but it only does one tier. You can only have your top nav and then one drop-down. It'd be really good to see some multi-level menus in there. And personally, I'd also like to see a consistent way of showing pop-up notifications. So just a nice way to style them and have them sort of appear on websites. Because there are a lot of times when you either want to say, hey, well done, you've done a good job, or watch out. But there are some other times when I just want to say, hey, you've got 3 alerts waiting, and I just want to pop up a nice little box. It does. So it does have modals, and it does have little pop-ups with an arrow to point to content. But what I want to see are just independent sort of push notification style alert boxes.
Probably file them yourself.
Sorry?
Probably file them yourself.
File them?
No, make them file yourself.
Oh, right.
I've got some that come up and then disappear after a little while.
Oh, very good. Right. Okay. So a gentleman in the audience was just describing that you can actually get some form of pop-up and control it with JavaScript. So in summary, we've talked about a bit of the history of where we've come from with all that pain writing CSS. And now we're at a really good opportunity here to design consistently, code consistently, get the design out of the way of the developer, and without using any CSS, write really nice looking websites. We've talked about what Bootstrap is. We've looked at how you can add it to your project. The grid system, super important. Don't forget, use the grid system. If you use nothing else, the grid system is the first thing you should be playing with. There's a class for everything. Take a look at the components. And finally, scaffolding. Have a play with that. It's super useful if you're just generating a lot of these forms. I will notice... Don't forget to fill in your feedback, although you already are. Thanks very much. TJ.
Hey Ben, I sent you an email. If you can click.
Yes. What was the name of that URL again, sorry?
I forgot. I sent you.
Bootstrap Hero or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Was this the one? Or we just stumbled upon something cool. What I will tell you, while I've got this up, is where do you go to find out all the information? Now that I've shown you all this sort of stuff, where do you go? Where can you follow this up? Go to getbootstrap.com. That's where you go and get Bootstrap. Very simple. They've got great getting started documentation. In fact, Get Bootstrap is probably one of the best documented libraries or projects or frameworks I've ever seen. I've never seen something documented with more good quality content than Bootstrap. You can come into getting started and see a whole bunch of examples. Let's zoom in. So you can get things like show me all the buttons. I want a layout that looks like a default one. There's a blog one in here. There's a one-pager app. There's a nice, cool little sales style layout. There's your blog one on the left, dashboard style one. So there's lots of these base examples that you can go and use. If you have a look across the top, CSS. When we jump into that, we can start to see all the code for everything. So the grid system I was talking about, great sort of explanation about how it all works. If you come in here, tables, we can see all the different ways you can style your tables. Forms, again, different ways you can style your forms with code explanations. You've got buttons, playing with images. If you go back up the top, components, these are the cooler things. Things like drop-downs, where you can just drop down anything, pick any element and make a drop-down from it. Button groups, where you can just sort of add a sort of changing radio buttons into a nice little sort of group of buttons. It goes into depth about the nav bar. Now, I tried to stay away from that top nav bar because it's a little bit more complex, but once you've sort of dived in, you can take a look at it. So that's sort of that top navigation part. You've got the labels I was talking about before, badges, alerts. So here's that call out, by the way, I was talking about. It's only in the documentation, but it looks really good. But what you can do is get things like this, alerts. Yes, DJ.
Bootstrap Hero. If you can go to that tab.
Yes.
And badass resources.
Badass resources on bootstraphero.com.
Oh, a lot of extensions based on Twitter Bootstrap.
Okay, yes. So TJ was telling me this is a big list of useful Bootstrap resources. There you go. That says it all. So this was mainly jQuery plugin style components. So this is an excellent one to look at as well. So that's bootstraphero.com and then the badass resources tab. I'm just flicking back to Get Bootstrap again because the last thing I want to show you on this website is the JavaScript tab at the top here. And you can get really cool things such as modals that look like this out of the box. So I can just, with no JavaScript, with no CSS, with no anything but classes and a little bit of HTML, I can get a modal to pop up. I can put whatever content I want in it. That modal can contain anything that you can write in Bootstrap as well. So we've just got headers and buttons and links and little tool tips and stuff like that. So it's really powerful. And we've still got our primary things like this. And that's all built in. And you can see the code is, it's basically that long. Bottom, it's a little difficult to see, but the bottom half here is the modal itself, all just decorated with classes. And at the top there, you've got things like data toggle, data target, and that's just what hooks everything up. So I mentioned that Bootstrap is a CSS and JavaScript framework. The JavaScript is a little lighter, but it does give you some really cool things like this out of the box. After modals, I mean, there's not too much more better than seeing modals. There's popovers, which I believe is what this guy was talking. Sorry, what's your name? Nathan. I believe Nathan was talking about popovers. So you've got the ability to toggle these sort of popovers, which is really helpful for giving a bit of extra context to what you're doing. And I also really like tooltips, which are those really tiny, I don't know if you see these around the place, but these nice little hover, oh, that's too small. These nice little sort of, and you can control which direction they come with, and again, it's all just classes in HTML. Those are really useful. Zoom out so I get my menu. And you can also get things like carousel. But did anyone know that carousel is an anti-pattern? You should never use carousels. There's a whole heap of really good research that shows that you'll never, ever, ever, ever see anything past the first slide, ever. 90-something% of people won't look past that first slide. So if you ever have a big marketing website with nice big sliders, most people don't see the rest of the content.
We've just seen all three there.
All right, you got me.
Depends what other content you've done.
The key point, yeah. So the key point to take away from this is that most people won't see the rest of the content in those sliders because they're too busy looking past it already. They've navigated away. And if you've got important content, don't hide it. Bring it out. Make columns. Move them around. But if you want to, there it is. It's all built in. Go for yes. Go for it.
I think it depends what you're trying to display too, and whether people know what they're looking for. So if I look at the 9MSN site where they have a tag that says news, sport, weather, blah, 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 then it's kind of like an expander rather than an automated carousel.
Right, okay. Do you have the mic? Can you just reiterate that over the mic?
I think it also depends on what you're trying to display. So if I look at the 9MSN site where rather than just have little arrows, they have vertical bars that show you things like news, weather, sport, and you click on each one, it's basically a horizontal expander.
Right, okay.
But I'm not quite sure where it is on that particular site. Maybe it's only the news site. You don't look at the homepage, go to the news. So that particular control there, you can start to look at each of the different things.
That's a bit of a horizontal accordion rather than a carousel.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take your point though, yeah. But just the takeaway from that is typically with those carousels, most people miss the content. And if you want to show something important, just don't use a carousel. So getbootstrap.com, don't forget to do that. Tweet your favorite tip, Ben is cool. Usually hashtag netusergroup or netug would be the better one for that. Again, I'm Ben. Feel free to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Skype. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has. If you get stuck, let me know. I'm always happy to help. That video I mentioned earlier, that's a great resource for just getting started and really slowly walking you through that initial process.
Sorry, what's the URL for the video?
Ah, yes. You can Google Bootstrap and Ben Cull if you want, because that's what I do to find it. It's the top result. It's this one here. Oh, that is so small. So, SSW TV has this. So if you go to tv.ssw.com and just look for Bootstrap, and you'll find the video. Yeah. Yeah, I search as well. Great resource, tv.ssw.com. Excellent videos. And I'm not just saying because I made one. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for sticking around. Does anyone have any questions?
With those input,
Yeah, microphone. Can we get someone to run around with the mic?
So I can click those
With-
details, that would be great.
With the input controls, is there a nice way to get them to line up next to each other? For example, if you've got things like an address bar where you wanted to have flat number, street name, generally you don't want any space and you want them all tightly
Correct.
together.
Yes, you can. So the question was, if anyone didn't hear, how can you line up form elements in line, basically?
really little one.
And the really little ones. So in that case, yes, that's when you step over the line and you write a bit of CSS to fix with those little ones. And you can use media queries to, help with the layouts. But then there are Bootstrap classes called form inline. And so if you go to the getbootstrap.com, find the forms element, you'll see really nice, I think it goes email, password, sign in, and there's a nice example of how to make that all one line. Any other questions? Oh, look, that's easy.
Can we use it in ASP, classic ASP and ASP web forms as well?
Classic ASP has got to be .NET. Oh, sorry, repeat the question. Can you use Bootstrap with classic ASP and web forms as well? Absolutely. This is just, it's all client side. There's just CSS and it's just JavaScript. So anything that can handle those, absolutely. I think you might find it a little bit trickier with, say, web forms and built-in controls. But as long as you use containers to contain most of your server-side content and your controls, you should be okay, yes. Nathan.
Have you played around with the less?
Excellent point. If you repeat the question. I'll get it one day. So Nathan just said, have I played with less? And I'm guessing you're getting at the fact that Bootstrap is built in less. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Bootstrap is built using less CSS. Now, if anyone's not using less, I absolutely urge you to use less CSS. There's actually a rule on rules.ssw.com.au for rules to better Bootstrap saying, sorry, oh, can I go? Yep. SAS? Yeah. Yes. I'll stick to less now for now because it's the easiest to understand. But basically less.css, and I'll show you a quick demo of that too, very quickly. Really? Okay. I can't show you, but trust me, there's a good rule there. Can I put
the slides up,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'll write a blog post up summarizing this, and I'll put the slides up as well. Stay tuned for that one, especially on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll always get the latest word.
Put the link in the PowerPoint before you upload.
Okay, yep, good point. I've lost my train of thought. What was I just about to demo? Less. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, you may have noticed I deleted the site.css with good reason. If you go to content, you can spin up. How many of you guys have Web Essentials? Okay, first step, tools, extensions and updates. Go and get yourself Web Essentials 2013. make sure you use the correct version for the version of Visual Studio you're using. They have one per sort of thing. So I'm on Visual Studio 2013 Update 2. Make sure you get Web Essentials for that particular one. This has a whole heap of functionality that I just consider built into Visual Studio now. I'm just so used to it. Probably one of the better ones is its less support. So when I go to add new item, I can search for less. I get less style sheet. I'm sorry if this is a bit small for you guys. I'm going to call it site.less because that's typically what I do, just have one big site. Now this I can zoom in. So the coolest thing about this is the fact that I can go, all right, I'm going to segment off my index page using an ID as the wrapper for my index page. Inside that, I'm going to put, I want a width of 50%, just any old sort of thing. I also have a couple of lists I like to use in there. And those lists, I want list style type none. Within those ULs, I also have a bunch of LIs that I want to make their background color 3s. So you can nest your CSS, and this is a really good way of organizing CSS because I find you have to repeat yourself a lot. So when I hit save, over on the right-hand side, oh, can I zoom this one? No, I can't. Sorry about that. On the right-hand side here, it's generated index page UL, index page ULLI, and it basically it just compiles down to normal CSS. So when you reference your file, if you can see, it's probably a bit small, but I've got my site.less. Underneath that is site.css, which is the compiled down version. Happens every time I hit save. And underneath that is site.min.css. So I can just go link href site.min.css, and I'll always have a minified, compiled down version. But when at development time, I get to use something really, really nice like this. Yeah, fun. Thanks, Mark. There are other really cool parts to this as well, one of them being the variables. So if I say Ben color, and I make that 7s, further on, and this is really useful if you have a color palette for your business or for your website or your project. Instead of putting in the colors every time, I can now put in Ben color, and you get IntelliSense, so that helps you out as well. So now, if I want to change my accent color or my primary color, I can change it in one spot. So if I hit save, you'll notice I get 7s there now. And if I change this to 9s, I hit save, and then it compiles it down as well. You can also create functions whereby if I wanted to style something with a color, a background, like I wanted to group up a bunch of styling, I could then say, my cool style. I won't go into it now, but you can basically wrap up a bunch of styles into a function, and then every time you want to use that group of styles, you just reference that name, and you say, put in the transparent with a red glow or something function, and it'll apply that to everything else.
Sorry, where did we get less from again?
So less is just a particular technology. The way that you use it here is via this Web Essentials. So Web Essentials will enable less support, so you can just start, you can go add new less file. If you want to find out more information about less itself, I don't know where to go. Less CSS. There you go. Getting started at lesscss.org is probably, I think, going to be a good place to start.
Generally, half the stuff you find in Web Essentials in one release turns into the product in the next release.
Exactly. Web Essentials really, it started with a bunch of things, didn't it? Like a good JavaScript IntelliSense started there, I think, as well. TypeScript. But yes, oh, and the kicker, if you just want to still write normal CSS, you can. You don't have to use less. I can still go content, ULLI, and put in color 3s, it'll still compile it and put it in just directly. So even if you don't want to use it and you just want to play with a couple of tweaks, you can just grab all the CSS from your existing one, put it in a less file, hit save, and it'll still be exactly the same. So that way you can just tweak and play and not break anything. So yes, the original question I believe was Bootstrap is built in less if you want to have a play with the source, I'm guessing is where you're going with that as well? Yeah, so if you want to actually tweak Bootstrap itself, it's all written in less. So you can download the source, you can play with it, you can tweak it to your own heart's content, and then reference that. Yeah, exactly. So similar to that bend color at the top there, Bootstrap itself, those default primary danger, all those default colors are just listed at the top of one of their files. So if you wanted to tweak it there as well, you can. I'll just give you fair warning that Bootstrap updates a lot. So if you want to keep these changes, try to pull them out into your own files and override them rather than editing the source itself. Yeah, any other questions, guys?
What doesn't work with?
What doesn't Bootstrap work with? Yeah. Okay, that's a really good question. So the question is, what doesn't Bootstrap work with? Now, traditionally, especially in earlier Bootstrap days, things like your Dev Express controls and your Kendo UI controls, they would really butt heads with Bootstrap. These days, those sorts of dev frameworks have designed their suite of tools to not really conflict too badly with Bootstrap. But you'll find things like the grid system works pretty flawlessly everywhere. It'll be things like theming where you might get a bit of strange interactions with other frameworks. But for example, I wouldn't use Bootstrap with jQuery UI. You can use the grids, but the theming part, you might butt heads a bit. Oh, sorry. Yep.
I've found the opposite. Same with if you're using Infragistics, because they're sort of so heavily layered on top of jQuery and jQuery UI. Mm-hmm. Whatever you use, it just pulls in the style sheets and just runs with. I guess if you're saying the theme roller might collide with some of the color schemes you've got in your Bootstrap.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, I've just experienced a bit of collisions, but I guess it's there to try. Just throw it into a project and see what happens. For the most part, you should be okay. Explosions at the back. Sorry, any other questions? No, all good. All good. Thank you. Home time. Oh, pub time. Yes.